So today our focus is going to be replacing these galvanized drain lines and this cast iron drain here with ABS. And I mean, if you're doing PVC, it's kind of the same application. I chose ABS. A couple reasons: the long-term durability, and it's a little bit more flexible than PVC. So if the house shifts, you know, and I've got that ABS coming through here, if you know the house shifts up against a little bit, hopefully it'll adapt more than the PVC would. And PVC probably work out just fine too. It's a personal choice that I made to go with ABS. But so that's a shower. That whole bathroom upstairs is getting remodeled. The task at hand down here is this right in here are cold air returns. That's what was making the cold air return. So we've got supplies to actually make the cold air return. Maybe we'll do a different video on that, but that's one of my tasks under here. But the first one is to replace all this plumbing here, and that's the vent pipe going up. I'll probably leave the vent pipe since it never sees any action as far as water goes or anything like that, and it runs up through the attic, and it'd just be a lot easier to cut that and leave it in place and tie it in with the new ABS system. So to start with, we want to cut away all these pipes coming off of here, these drains and the gas vent coming off of here. The only thing we want to make sure we do is leave enough room with the vent pipe when we cut it, leave enough of the old sticking out to tie into the ABS. These, it doesn't matter, we're not reusing any of this. So I'm going to begin by just doing that, and I'm going to be using a Sawzall for everything. I've got a Milwaukee Super Sawzall 15 amp. You can do this, so many different tools. They have those tools that wrap around the cast iron pipe, and it's kind of like a chain with blades that goes around it, and you tighten it up and squeeze it, and it kind of cuts and cracks, and it works great for the cast iron. But I didn't want to spend money on that tool because I'm going to do this and I'll never need that tool again. Whereas a Sawzall, I spend, you know, 20-30 bucks in blades and get it done. So the first blade I'm using for this galvanized steel, I'm using a heavy metal cutting blade. You could possibly use thin. I already had one, but you don't need like a carbide grit or a diamond grit blade or anything like that for this. You do need the carbide grit or the diamond grit blade for this. Now you could also use a round cutoff tool for these and a diamond blade. That would make me nervous personally. If you got a cheap cutoff wheel or something and it explodes, goes everywhere going through that cast iron. So that's why I'm going with the Sawzall also. So I'm going to begin now. So something I wanted to point out really quick as I'm getting into cutting these. One is for your metal blades, spray some WD-40 or I have some PB Blast. Spray a little lube on the pipe and maybe do it again halfway as you go to help preserve your blade. Also, wear, you know, safety goggles are better than the glasses for this because little bits of metal are going to go all over your face, and as you cut in, you see to a drain, you see this nasty stuff leaking where I cut through. So I mean, you don't want that spraying in your eyes. You can wear a mask if you want. I didn't. I probably should have. But just definitely have some gloves on, have some safety goggles on, keep that crap out of your eyes, and spray down the pipe with some oil as you're going. So I've cut my vent pipe there already, and I've cut the sink drain. So next we got to cut this shower drain out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. stopping halfway through, getting a little more oil on that. Don't want that leaking down into that little bit of carpet exposed there. Okay, now that I've got these other lines all cut, and I got those ones taken out of there, the next cut that I'm going to make is going to be right here between these, because it's going to be easier than trying to get up here and go horizontally across. So my thought is I'm going to cut right here, and then we'll disconnect the toilet and the flange and drop this part down, and then we'll go into where it is in the wall later and cut down again. But first, to get rid of this top part, that's how we're going to do that. So what I've done, as you see, is I've put some support under there, because when I cut this, cast iron is very heavy. This whole stack's a couple 100 pounds, I'm sure, easy, a few 100 pounds. When I cut this, I don't want this to suddenly be leaning forward. Cast iron's also very brittle. I don't want it to lean forward and crack down at the base before we get to cut it ourselves. So I've got some supports wedged under there. Hopefully that helps. I may not even need them. Also, if you're gonna have these pipes hanging out for a while, stuff them with something. That one, just so it's not leaking down here, is why I stuffed it. These two, though, because that would be sewer fumes coming up while I'm working, so I don't want that. So, as far as supporting this, too, I don't want all of that just to be supported by the toilet, so I'm going to take this 2x4, get it right under there. On the bottom end, I'm going to have it on my jack, so I can then take it and jack it up and support that. Once it's cut, it'll be held up by this and by the toilet. Alright, so here's how I've got it set up now that I'm ready to cut that. Just got a little trolley jack down here. 2x4 braced under it, and I've got this very tight. Okay, now I didn't sit there and jack on it and force it again. You don't want to stress it that way now either, but just got it nice and snug there. So we can go ahead and start cutting into the cast iron. I'm going to use I have the carbide grip blade and the diamond grip blade. I'm going to see which works better. First up here, I think I'm going to use the, I don't know. I'll figure that out in a minute and I'll let you know. So I've got everything cut up here so far in the bulkhead that I needed to. We've got our cut here through the 4-inch cast iron. I used the diamond blade. Specifically, it was a Diablo brand diamond blade. And I would say that took, I'll show you when I cut the next, the base of the cast iron here. I didn't want to sit and film this whole thing because it was just kind of tough being up on the ladder and everything. It'll be easier to film the bottom part, but that took quite a while. It was probably about a half hour or so. I went through it, a lot of patience, stopping to spray oil very frequently, and towards the end it was the blade was getting pretty warm. You know, I was taking little breaks. I would go for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, then take a break for 2 or 3 minutes just to let the saw and the blades cool down, because the blade was actually starting to smoke due to the heat and the oil I was spraying on it. But anyways, it's good, and this worked. It's holding it up quite well, that, and it's poking through the ceiling. So now we're ready to come around and start cutting here. So I've marked with the tape. I want to cut above the tape there. Make sure I leave enough cast iron to slip our clamp over. The diamond blade, I'd say it's got some life left, but I don't know if I'll get another full cut out of it. I have that carbide blade, but I'm not going to switch to it until I really feel I have to, but I think this is probably going to be a little slower cutting now, and I think maybe I can start, but I don't think I'm going to even get halfway through before I need to change that blade, but we'll see. I'd rather be a new jack hustler.
On the skills of a triple B. You don't come here much, then you better not run move.
So here's the clean out, sanitary clean out, or clean out tee as they call it, that I'm going to be putting in, since mine is half buried. So it's going to have that going in the side with the cap there, and I'm going to leave access so in the future if I need to get to it, it's not behind a wall. So obviously I need to have a piece of ABS on here just to set up against the cast iron, and then we'll take that Fernco fitting, that rubber clamp, the 2-band clamp, and connect that here. So I already have this on, and it's curing now, but I'll show you how to do that with this in case you've never done it before. Fairly straightforward, and you can pretty much follow the instructions. But so in this example, if we have this piece fitting into there, you want to make sure we coat the outside as deep as it's going to go into there, and also coat the inside a little bit there, and then recoat that really quickly and then fit it up real fast. So I'll try to set that down and get it. Not being my friend right now. So loosen your bands up, and we're going to fit that over that, and going to make sure you go about halfway, so that way your ABS has lots of room as well. Okay, that's looking pretty decent to me. So drop this band down, tighten it up. I recommend you use the nut driver, not just the flathead, because you can really torque it down better, and it just doesn't slip out of there. This is a 5/16. I don't know if that's a standard size for these or not, truth be told, but so I'm going to do that really quick. So now we're going to insert our clean out into the clamp. Okay, so I'm just going to pause this and set it down so I can position this, you know, where I want it, and everything like that, and then just tighten these up real good. Okay, this is nice and tight now, as tight as I could get them. And so now I'm ready to measure and see how tall I need to make the next piece of pipe, where we're going to put the U-bend on. Well, not a U-bend, I guess 45 degree would that be, but whew. Something to keep in mind when you go to measure what you need next, or whatever piping. So I need to go from here, from the top of my clean out tee, and I need to go up to the top of this wall and bend in. So you don't want to just measure like from the top of the wall down to the top of there. You want to make sure you measure into these knuckles and actually get, you know, add that. So I had an extra 4 inches I had to add between my distance to make sure I had space to clear into the knuckles. So next, gonna put this in, connect it to there, and then get the, I know I said 45 degree, but 90 degree, it's been a long day, but 90 degree elbow in there. So once you get the cement on, you want to push everything together quickly. Okay, what I ended up deciding is going to be easier. At first I was going to have that clean out tee there, clamp that down, and then build from there. I realized though, every time I go to push in one of these new pieces, I didn't want that all to just come down to wiggling on this clamp for the force. It's going to have to for some of it, but so what I did is, this is not in place yet. I mocked up everything going up to that point. So, well, and not only mocked up, but everything is cemented together. It's just not clamped to the cast iron yet. And then what I was able to do is slip this boot up onto the ABS and literally just slide this. Look at this. Just slide it perfectly into place. And then now I can just simply drop that down like that, and now we can go ahead and tighten it up. Alright, so finished product overview. We've got everything securely clamped down to where we meet the cast iron coming out of the foundation. We've got our clean out. And so for me personally, when I re-drywall this whole thing, I'm going to make an access panel there so I can always get to that clean out. So we have it going up, bending in. Now, I still have to remodel the above bathroom. So I don't have a toilet, I don't have a sink, I don't have a shower, I don't have anything. So there's nothing to hook up yet. So I have it coming up here and stopped. I suggest you buy a rubber cap. This would be 4 inches, but I suggest you buy a rubber cap. Don't do this, just to be on the safe side. To, you know, for any gases coming out, I put this over there. But I'm gonna get all this hooked up fairly quickly. But if you're gonna be a while, get a rubber cap and put a rubber cap over this. So I do have my vent pipe hooked back up. I reuse the galvanized vent pipe that's going up through there. It's in good shape. I'm not too worried about it, and if I do need to replace that in the future, it doesn't really affect anything I've done or will do over here. I can undo where it's clamped there. So I am at least back up with my stack and everything's vented. One good piece of advice I'd have when you're doing the Sawzall is normally, like for example, when I cut up here, you know, you got your pipe you're trying to cut through, and you can just push the Sawzall right up against it and cut through with the blade sticking out the other end, and you know, everything's fine. You just keep going, keep cutting. Here, because we had that that wall that's behind it, cinder block wall, it's a support wall, ran into an issue where it was very hard to, you know, because I think there's a half, I could be wrong, but there might be a quarter or a half-inch stroke on the Sawzall. So you got to find the fine line between whacking the back wall,
but you also can't come in too short and then go inside of the pipe and it go to come out and then hit the inside of the pipe. So anyways, I had that happen, and it bent up our diamond blade, so I actually had to finish with the carbide blade, cutting the bottom. But to be honest with you, I do think that I could have finished with this blade as you take a look at it, but we had that happen, and when that happened, it was a hell of a kick. I'll tell you, it sent me backwards a little bit. So just be careful of that. That's a time where I could have seen a cutoff tool being handy in that sense, but a cutoff tool, as I said, if you have a cheap wheel on it, it might shatter, or besides that, you just make a lot of dust with a cutoff tool. I made no dust in here at all. I covered up, I have some electronic equipment in here, I covered it with a tarp, but I made no dust at all. So anyways, just beware of that as you're cutting through these. Now, something else that I didn't film because my phone was dead and I needed to get it out is once I had cut up there and I cut down here, you might be saying, well, you got this huge thing of cast iron. How'd you just, how'd you get it out of there? Did you cut it a bunch of times with the Sawzall? I did end up going to Home Depot and renting one of the tools I described with the chain that wraps around and breaks it up. Now, initially, I couldn't have gotten that tool around the old pipe. The old pipe was so close to back here that you couldn't slip the chain around it. But once I had cut the bottom with the Sawzall and cut up top and in there where you saw with the Sawzall, I was able to grab the pipe and pull it away and get that tool around it. As of me filming this, which is 2016, spring of 2016, that tool was $33 US, or no, not even, I think $30 US to rent for 24 hours at Home Depot. But I bet Lowe's, which is another big retailer, or, I don't know if those types of stores are in Canada or other countries if you're seeing this. But bottom line is you can rent it for a decent price, but you got to make sure you can actually use it. And once I cut it at top and bottom, I could.